Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to our first meeting of the year. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You take the roll call, please, Cheryl.
Joe Burden. Dennis Gagnon.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Laura O'Connell.
Here.
Neil Tillman is not here. Heidi Wendell. Here. And Neil Zuckerman is also not here.
Okay. Thank you. Can I get a motion for the approval of the last month's meeting minutes?
I make that motion.
Thank you. Second. Peter, thank you. All in favor? Aye. We had some correspondence. I'll let Cheryl address that, if you don't mind.
Okay. The first letter is regarding Johnson and Rinderman, Mountain Brook Road, Cold Spring, New York. Dear Chairman Zuckerman and members of the Planning Board, as you may recall, this project received site plan approval at a meeting of the Planning Board on January 20th, 2022, and the site plans were signed by the Planning Board on April 22nd, 2023. A building permit has not yet been obtained. On behalf of the applicant, we hereby request a 6-month extension of the site plan approval in accordance with 175-68E.1 of the code while the applicant continues to develop the construction documents and secures the necessary financing for the project. We trust that this correspondence adequately addresses the extension of the site plan approval. Thank you in advance for your attention to this request. Yours truly, Beatty and Watson, Jason Snyder.
Steve, do we have to make any type of vote on that, or is that almost automatic?
Well, it's automatic in the extent that under the code, since this is just the 24-month anniversary of granting the approval, they are entitled to it upon asking. Since they have asked, the board now has to make a motion to grant the 6-month extension and then have a second and vote on that. So if somebody would like to make a motion to grant the requested 6-month extension.
Can I have a motion from the board? Thank you, Peter. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve. On the second letter.
In regard to Krasniqi, we're not going to get into that because there's a moratorium in place and it prohibits the board from processing the application. That includes any letters from the public on it. So you can note that they've been received, but the board can't act on them or consider them tonight.
For us.
For Krasniqi, that's it, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Tonight we have one public hearing regarding RKB materials. Okay, Cheryl, can you read that?
Sure. The Planning Board of the Town of Philipstown, New York will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 18th, 2024, starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, to consider the following application. RKB Materials LLC, 39 Horseman's Trail, Cold Spring, New York, 10516, tax map number 16.12-1-7, project major site plan, amended site plan, construction of a 50-foot by 70-foot garage and overnight parking of 6 triaxle dump trucks. Dated at Philipstown, New York, the 16th day of November, 2023. Neil Tillman, acting chair.
Okay, thank you. Jason, are you going to sort of give us the highlights of this, or before we get into?
Jason Snyder with Beatty and Watson, representing the applicant RKB Material. This is an amended site plan at 39 Horseman's Trail, which would allow construction of the garage that was mentioned, 50 by 70, and also overnight parking of six triaxle dump trucks. And it would also allow the operating times to be 1/2 hour earlier on the weekends. Just Monday through Friday, from the current hours of 7 o'clock, from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock to 6:30 to now 5:30. So those are really the three highlights of the amended site plan: are the hours, the garage, and the trucking.
And all that information is now on the plans?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, Ron. Regarding the requests for information on that, are you satisfied with, or have you seen what was just?
Yeah, I had raised issues based on the statement of use that had been filed. They've identified the issue of occasional rock crushing. The applicant has just filed information that suggests that that will no longer be requested from this board. There's a variety of other technical issues that he's also responded to that I'll have to react to, review, but I suspect that the matters that I had raised likely have been concerned or could be conditions of approval if the board was so disposed.
I see. And the information that, I know you haven't had a chance to review it, but, okay.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, very good, thank you. I guess to open up the public hearing, or anybody here for that public hearing to address it or make any comments? Okay, that's what we're here for. Can you identify yourself and get up to the mic, please?
My name's Edgar Pohemus, and from Pohemus Enterprise. And as you folks probably already know, I had a for sale sign on that property for quite some time. And I had a lot of people interested in that property. And none of the hometown fellas, they all come and talk, wanted it. And I could mention some other names too, but I want to stick pretty much to what we're up to tonight. And that's what we're here tonight to talk about this plan here that Richard Barris has got. Now, last year he stepped up and he purchased, or he invested in Philipstown. How many people are doing that these days? Not very many. Now, I got another sign down on Route 9D. It says for sale. Nobody's stepping up for investing in there either. I was a lucky man to be able to sell that in 23, according to all the reports that I read in the papers. But this man, he stepped up last year. Now this year he's here with a plan. Now I suppose he got here today, with a plan that's pretty much approval by you people. Now I don't know how much more that you want him to do, but he's got a pretty good foundation here. And I don't know how much more he can do to improve it. Now, when I went through this process years ago, they had me plant a lot of trees. Well, you know, you plant a lot of trees, you gotta water them. You do a lot of landscaping, you gotta take care of it. Now, man's in business to make money, not to have a show place. Now he's situated there in a cluster. He's in one of them cluster areas. Pedalo Oil across the street, Pedalo Landscape, Mid-Hudson Concrete. Another place up the street there, recycling place. I mean, what more can a man do in an area like that, in a trailer park? I thought the trailer park guy might want it. You know, he might want to make a better place there, maybe a little play area for his kids, for the kids over there, storage area. That's what he's in business for. To make money, like anybody else that's in business in Philipstown. Actually, I'm surprised I'm not seeing anybody here, other business people here in Philipstown. I mean, these business people's got to stick together a little bit. They're the ones that's paying a substantial amount of money to taxes. to take care of the dirt roads that we got in town. Paid a lot of money for that highway department building down there. Take care of the roads. Who pays for that? People in Philipstown. That's about all I can say. I should realize by now where I'm standing for this project. This man's got pretty good equipment. And he's got pretty good work ethics.
Okay, thank you very much. I take it you're for the project? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Ron, would the next step, or Steve actually, for us to go ahead with preparing a resolution for approval?
Next step would be, assuming there is no one else who wishes to speak, you might want to check on that.
Thank you, I should have asked that question. Is there any other, anybody from the public that needs to address this project?
Okay, so the next step would be a motion to close the public hearing, second, and then a vote on it.
Okay, let's take it that way. Can I get a motion from the board to close the public hearing?
Make that motion.
Laura, thank you. Second? Peter, thank you. Second? Any objections, any, or discussion for anybody? Very good, just have a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in favor, please, raise your hand.
Okay, excellent. So now I would think the board would want to discuss the project with its consultants and among itself, and then at the end, you're going to make a determination as to whether you want to direct that a approval resolution be prepared for consideration at the next meeting.
Thank you, Steve. Does the board have any comments, any discussion, any concerns?
So I'm just going to assume that Ron is gonna wanna review
Right.
all of this, so we can still recommend for a resolution pending your review of this, assuming
Sure.
that this has been accepted.
What will happen if there's any issues that I find, I'll immediately resolve them with the applicant's engineer, and any open conditions will become conditions of any approval you take. For example, there's a request from the applicant to operate his business starting at 6:30 in the morning. That'll be identified as an action that you're accepting. As part of that, we'll also highlight the performance standards that are in your code in terms of noise, in terms of what maximum noise is permitted up to 7 a.m. and then what's permitted after that, in terms of limitations.
Yeah, I mean, I plan on tidying all that up, and, I mean, that's not like the final, I mean, I'm gonna work with Ron I just wanted to give you something tonight.
So, thank you.
So, Steve, do we, at this time, do we make a request for preparing a resolution, or we'll hold
If
off?
you feel that you're ready to have a resolution prepared, just because a resolution's prepared doesn't mean that you have to adopt it at the next meeting. You may have questions, you may want to impose conditions, et cetera, but if you feel that you've come to the point where the public hearing's closed, you understand the project, there's no outstanding issues other than engineering matters that can be resolved with the applicant, it's normal for the board to direct the engineer to prepare an approval resolution for consideration, not necessarily adoption at the next meeting.
So basically, to keep the project moving, if we make the recommendation for preparing a resolution, we're good with that.
So somebody should make if you're so inclined, someone should make a motion to direct Ron to prepare.
Can I get a motion for that from any board member?
I'll make that motion.
Or second?
Sorry.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thanks, Ron. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Good luck with everything. We're gonna have a little bit of a change in the schedule, or presenting. We're gonna move the Garrison Golf Club up, and do the Hudson Highlands after that one, so. Excuse me.
costume change for our engineers here. All right, thank you. While we're doing that, I'm Adam Stollerow from Cy Pageant and Roselle. Nice to be back before the planning board. We have a zoning amendment referral from the town board before you tonight, as well as the site plan and subdivision approval. I don't know if you want me to say anything about the project in terms of what's up for the site plan approval. It's not for the whole project, it's just for phase 1 of the project. And we're hoping that if we get a vote from the town board at their February 1st meeting, that we could try and schedule a public hearing on the site plan and subdivision before the planning board at its February meeting.
Ron, do you have any regarding reviewing of the most recent plans? Any comments, anything we should be aware of?
No, the plans are currently under review. There's a significant plan set that's involved. I expect to have my comments completed by next week, and I'll issue them to the board as well as the applicant directly. So that's forthcoming.
So basically for tonight, we're just acknowledging that we have the information in hand.
Right.
And then under review, or will be under review. And is there anything else that we would need to do as a board tonight?
As the applicant indicates, there's a referral in front of you from the town board that you should respond to. They've made referral based on the proposed rezoning that's been requested by the applicant. Town board has drafted a draft amendment, and it's now for the planning board to issue comments if they wish. There's no obligation to respond.
Yeah, I thought that was a done deal, to be honest with you.
I can clarify a little more
If you
too.
can,
So,
thank you.
Aaron Werner, AKRF consultant to the planning board. So you remember, we went through the seeker process for this project, and part of that review, a big part of it, was the zoning change request through the town board that they need to allow these uses on the Garrison Golf Club site. It also covered their full build-out, their whole concept for the Shakespeare Festival project, including the theater, the artists' housing, the parking areas, the concession areas, everything that they want to do for this long-term build-out of their Shakespeare Festival plan, including phase 1, which is in front of you now. So basically, we had to go through seeker to get to the point where the town board could get their zoning petition, which is this proposed local law, which I think you've all seen, which the town board referred to the planning board. And that is basically the local law that's proposing to amend the current Garrison Golf Club Plan Development District, change the name of it to the Garrison Cultural Conservation District, Plan Development District, and it will change the allowable uses to accommodate the Shakespeare project, including the theater and all those associated uses. So the town boards had that for a couple months. They scheduled a public hearing, and they had a public hearing earlier this month, and they're continuing it to February 1st. And one of the reasons why they're continuing it was because they needed the planning board's response to their referral on it, on that local law. So you've considered that local law as part of the seeker review. It was definitely, all the uses in there were considered. Some of those uses were existing through the Garrison Golf Club Plan Development District 2005 EIS that was done. Some of those uses are being removed, some of them are staying. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, they need that zoning change to be able to come to you for their, even though they submitted it, they really need that zoning change to officially begin the phase 1 site plan review by this board.
So we need that from the town board before we can really move any further, or?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, they need their zoning approved before you can even act on their site plan submission.
So for this evening, what's in front of us?
So the town board is looking for a response to their referral on the proposed local law to change the zoning. I don't know if they're looking for like a letter. Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the provisions in the town's code is that whenever there is a zoning amendment proposed, it gets referred to the planning board to look it over and make whatever comments they want to make, if any, you're not required to, back to the town board to help them determine whether to move forward with the zoning change or not. Most of the time, the zoning changes that are proposed by the town board are not directly related to applications that are pending before the planning board. The town amends the comprehensive plan and they want to change the zoning for that reason, or they note something, that concerns them in the zoning, in provisions of the zoning code of their own accord, and they come up with a local law and they say, hey, we want to change the zoning to make this provision or eliminate that provision. And it comes to this board and you take a look at it and you say, well, gee, I see what they're doing, but have they considered this or that or the third thing? Or maybe it doesn't go far enough, or maybe it goes too far, whatever it may be. This is a little different. This is an application where it started before this board. So you understand this project in terms of what they're actually physically proposing to do, the uses, how it's going to be built out, what the setbacks are, the whole 9 yards as far as that goes. You went through it in great detail when you did your SEQR review. Now that SEQR's completed, the town board has written up in a local law what it is they're proposing, what you understand them to be proposing as the development of this property. And because it's what it says in the town code that there has to be a referral back to the planning board, there's a referral back to you now. So if you have concerns about noise, if you have concerns about traffic, if you have concerns about any of the proposed uses, there's a artist residences, something like that. Now's the time to say, we understand what the project is, we're reviewing the project, but we have concerns about this, that, and the third thing, and we think that they should be allowed, shouldn't be allowed, should be limited, or maybe just you have to look more closely at this before you approve it. Then again, you may feel that the project has been adequately discussed, the law is the law, and there's really nothing that you wish to say in regard to it. But the town board has the public hearing scheduled for the February 1st meeting, and it's likely they'll close it at the February 1st meeting. And after that, you won't have an opportunity to make comments on the proposed local law. So if there's something that you'd like to say, let me know now, and I'll prepare a draft letter to the board, to town board, from this board, and you can voice your concerns or questions or whatever it is you may want to say that way. So if you want to go one by one and talk about it, you want to talk about it as a group, that's just fine. But if the answer is we don't want to make any comment, let me know and I'll send a letter saying that.
Canvass the board right now to see if they have any.
I think that's probably the most efficient way of proceeding.
Why don't we start with Joe? I know you're new to the board. I know you're relatively new to this project. You would have to do a lot of catch-up to be where most of us are. Do you have any comments, concerns?
No, I feel like a lot of the issues were addressed in the EIS pretty substantially, so I don't have any comments. No.
Heidi?
I just wanted to see, AKRF wrote us a really detailed memo, which I found really helpful. Are these conditions related?
Not really.
Okay.
So that, I got that out of the way because they submitted a site plan for phase one.
Okay.
When it comes back to when this zoning issue is dealt with and it's really in front of you then to talk about this phase one site plan, which Ron is reviewing the technical drawings on, and I'm supporting with this memo on seeker mitigation specifically. That's what that memo covers.
Okay.
That's when we can really get into that. I just wanted to have that in front of you because I thought maybe we would talk about the site plan, but then I was reminded that you really have to get that referral back to the town board first, so
Okay.
we can hold off on that.
I had a couple questions about this, but I guess we won't discuss that tonight. I'll just send them to you.
Sure.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
So I don't have any comments about the proposed zoning change.
Okay. Peter?
No, neither do I. I was happy with the FEIS and this zoning change kind of eludes me a little bit as to why.
I'm sorry?
Kind of eludes me as to why the name change needs, but that's fine with me.
Laura?
No, I'm fine.
I'm good with what was prepared, so I think that's all.
Prepare a letter to the town board saying that you've reviewed the draft zoning amendment law and you have no comments to offer.
So they'll go ahead and close the public hearing next meeting and.
I can't predict what they're
Well,
going
I'm
to do,
just-
but
on what
I
we-
expect
what
that
you
that's
know.
what's going to happen,
Okay.
yes.
All right, very good. Thank you, Steve. I'm not even quite sure what the next step is for us here on,
I think they have a request.
Our request would be that we schedule the public hearing on the site plan for the next planning board meeting in February. If something happens, for some reason we don't get a vote on the 1st of February on the zoning change, then we could take it off the agenda, but we'd like to keep the wheels moving on this project. So if we could schedule the public hearing, that would also be under the town law, it would be a co-public hearing with the Conservation Board because of the wetlands permit for this project.
be a combined public hearing?
It will be a combined public hearing.
Okay. So we basically have to go for a motion for it, for,
Well,
having-
here's the thing, Dennis. They don't have their zoning change yet. So the planning board's practice has been that until there's a zoning change in place, they won't process the site plan subdivision, special use permit, whatever it is, because there's a chance that the zoning change won't be granted, and if that's the case, you've wasted everybody's time processing the application. This zoning change is scheduled for February 1st. The applicant is suggesting that it's likely that the town will grant it or grant it with modifications, whatever, at that meeting, and that following that, you would be able to, planning board would be able to hold the joint public hearing. If you wish to accommodate that request, then you can vote to schedule the public hearing now. If you don't want to accommodate that request, you can just say no.
is there anything detrimental to scheduling or making a motion to schedule a public hearing for a February meeting? I mean, is there any drawbacks to that?
Other than it's not your practice, no, it doesn't cost any money to the town. I mean, it's pretty much the applicant who's at risk.
I'd like to have some feedback from the board. Any thoughts? I'm not quite sure which way to head with this one, so. To schedule or not to schedule? Or Ron or Steve, any input?
I'm sorry. The comments I'm going to likely present will all be technical and more directed to their engineering consultant.
Nitty-gritty stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had, the memo I sent in that was dated the 12th, is kind of going hand in hand with Ron's review, and that it points out certain things that I think the site plan should call out with regard to seeker specific mitigation that came out of the EIS process. Making notes on the plan that they're going to have that noise complaint protocol and other things. It's pretty detailed in there about what I thought should be amended on the plan set to accommodate seeker specific mitigation measures. So, yeah, I mean, our review will be ongoing. That even if the public hearing was to happen, we might still have, comments, and the board can decide to continue it or whatever. But, it's up to you, I guess.
My mindset typically is to keep projects moving, so they're not stalled. I don't want to wind up costing people money because of that, or in the opposite side, holding off and costing time and money for the project. So, does it make sense, I'm looking at our professionals here, to go ahead and at least schedule a public hearing? Or is that,
Can I make a comment?
sure?
There's going to be a public hearing that will be either continued or, but people from the public will be making comments about the zoning change on February 1st. To me, I totally get, what I would wish we could do is, out of respect for that process, not vote that we would assume that the zoning change would go through, but rather could we not act if that public hearing closes and, prior to our next meeting, couldn't we all just then say, okay, there's time, we can schedule, we could schedule our response to that acceptance by the town board of the zoning change, in time for our next meeting, but not to do it now, because I feel like it's a little, like if people from the public show up to talk about it, it might look a little like we're kind of assuming it'll pass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I may not be correct about this, but you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but based on that, if it is passed by the town board and we don't have it scheduled,
There's not enough time.
there's not enough time. I don't believe there'll be any, when would we be able to vote on it? It would not be, it would be at February's meeting to vote for a public hearing, which would be a month out.
Okay, I'm gonna have to, okay, but I would vote against it then for that reason, that if people from the public are gonna come and speak about maybe not wanting the zoning change, I'm not saying it won't pass, we've heard a lot about it, but to me, it's not really, it
So
would not be
can I just
appropriate.
ask on that, on what Heidi's asking, which is, I'm assuming that if the town board doesn't close the public hearing, whatever we schedule, we can cancel. So if the town board doesn't close it because the public hearing continues, right, whatever we schedule for February, we can cancel.
Yeah, like if we could pass something that says, if it passes, we're gonna have a public hearing or something?
Right.
I got the impression that wasn't really,
Well,
if that's possible then.
if you didn't have that, that would be,
I'll throw one more thing, and
Yeah.
I don't know that the board cares at all, but I will not be at the February meeting. Adam Rod's gonna have to cover for me that night. And Adam's perfectly capable of doing that, just wanted you to, not be surprised by that.
And we're not going away together, but I likewise will not be at that meeting.
You will not either?
No.
I should be
Florida.
I mean, I don't know if it's worth mentioning.
I just hate holding up
Right,
projects.
but just for an example, like for the HHR application, you guys waited till the town board was done, too. So I think there's precedent there, but,
That's the practice, they normally
Yeah.
don't do that, it's not just HHR.
right.
Yeah. So that's been traditional for the board to,
As long as I've been with the board,
okay.
that's a ways.
Okay, do we have to make a motion not to have?
No, you just don't do it.
Just don't do it, so we're done as far as this.
If that's the board's pleasure, I'm not telling you to make a decision one way or the other.
But I guess the question is, so then for February, though, if we don't do the public hearing, we will have enough of the technical information and feedback from Ron and Aaron, so we could hold a discussion on the technical information at the February meeting to then be able to have the public hearing with more information that comes out of that meeting in February. So it's not really pausing it, it's a little bit of us doing our due diligence as a board with our technical advisors, and then be able to open the public hearing in March. If that's a,
If I can just explain, the project is trying to stay on schedule for a spring start for 18-month construction window. So every month that we lose is important. And so if I could request one more time that the board, if you could, there's no reason not to have that discussion on the technical aspects and have the public hearing at the February meeting, rather than doing it in two separate meetings.
I'd like somebody to make a motion if interested to schedule, always schedule a public hearing for the February meeting.
Conditioned upon the town board closing.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second?
I could second it, but I wonder, can you second with a caveat? Steve, is that, or
You
not?
can conditionally schedule a meeting, that's no problem.
I was just feeling like Heidi that, and Laura, that if we were able to, draw back because of circumstances or new information or something, then it gives us that leeway to be able to go this way or to go that way. And so, I could second this.
You could second that.
With that.
Okay, very good. All in favor? Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Thank you, Steve.
Okay, so it's unanimous then, all right. Scheduled for, what's the February 15th meeting?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
No takers. I was trying to guess what that
Are we
means.
ready for Hudson Highlands? Okay, next up is Hudson Highlands Reserve.
I'm gonna try to work that out.
Acting Chairman Judson Siebert of Keenan Bean PC, here tonight on behalf of Horton Road LLC, the applicant. I'm joined by Margaret McManus of Beatty and Watson. At the outset, thank you for the last-minute change on scheduling. It's kind of a busy night for both Margaret and I. We're here tonight really for two reasons. One, just to apprise the board very quickly as to where we are relative to follow-up on the preliminary subdivision approval that was granted by the board on September 21st. And secondly, to make a request of the board in accordance with past precedent of the board of authorizing the applicant to proceed prior to the DEC April 1st cutting deadline, the habitat cutting deadline, with some preliminary tree removal on the site. And we'll go through what we're looking to do in that regard in a moment. With regard to the preliminary subdivision approval, we're continuing, apace with outside regulatory agencies, most notably the Department of Health. Submission is in with the Department of Health for the common septic area. There is a requirement for the eventual formation of a TCL for Sewer Works Corporation. That is actually going to be dependent upon passing the portal DOH approval, but that process is moving forward. Submissions are in to DOT for their comments on the highway permit. That's moving forward. You'll recall that we had provided the board prior to preliminary subdivision approval with a set of HOA documentation. All of that's being revised by counsel other than my firm, a firm that works in terms of HOA, condominium, offering plans and the like, to make sure that those HOA documents incorporate and fold in all of the requirements that were imposed by virtue of the finding statement issued by the board as part of this project. So all of those processes are moving forward. It is likely, and I anticipate making a kind of a pro forma request for an extension of the preliminary subdivision approval. That 180-day deadline will expire, I believe, in March. So we anticipate having that request in February. But all of those processes are moving forward as anticipated, and we fully anticipate to be back to the board with an application for final. With regard to the tree removal, got to get my bearings straight here. We are proposing limited tree removal, and we're trying to do it because, as the board is aware, due to habitat restrictions imposed by DEC, starting April 1, we hit a period where we cannot remove trees. So what we would like to, and what we're asking the board to do, is to authorize the commencement of tree removal in this shaded area off of Route 9, tied strictly to project infrastructure, the road, common septic area, and one building lot. Just to give us the capacity to begin to move forward in light of the fact that once April 1st hits, that activity will be placed on hold for most of the year. The method of tree removal proposed is from DEC's perspective, is not deemed as site disturbance. We actually use what's known as a mulching head, and I wish I had a picture, but I'll try to use my hands. I mean, it's literally an attachment that takes a tree and mulches from top down and chips basically in place. It's on tracked equipment. Stumps will remain in place, so there's no stormwater disturbance. And as I said, this has been activity that's been authorized by the board before, and we would ask for its permission to do so here.
So you're basically primarily looking to do tree removal on the roadway's path? Right. And to how wide? I mean, say the road, I'm just saying, throw a number out, the road is, say, 30 feet, how much room do you need overall?
So these are the limits of disturbance based on our grading plan?
Mike? Yes.
So I used the limits of disturbance, which would be where we have to grade to, as the edge of where we need to cut.
Right.
Because whether we cut them this year or next year, they have to come down. They are in the way of the construction. Even if they're on the edge, if you leave trees that have been disturbed at their roots, they're going to die in the future anyway. So, you know, we've picked a path that we know will need to be disturbed. We are not going to disturb between Route 9 and the entrance we're creating behind the commercial building here. So it will not be starkly visible from Route 9. This is going to be the entrance for the construction vehicles until we cut through to Route 9, which will not be during this construction season.
Isn't that somebody else's property?
No, this is
Okay.
part of the
I'm-
subdivision.
From this distance, I'm trying to,
Right, and there's an existing parking area that, you know, to the extent there'll be staff that on site for purposes of this activity, all of it will, you know, all of that will be, access will be through this existing
okay,
building.
I
and
got
parking
that
lot.
now.
Yeah.
Just, again, going back to my original question, an idea, scale-wise, from here, it's hard to say. How wide is that?
It's about
swatch?
the width of the right-of-way, which is about 50 feet, maybe at the most.
Okay, same thing with the cul-de-sacs?
The cul-de-sacs are a little bit, you know, because the grading, you have to level out the cul-de-sac, so we have to grade a little bit past that, so it's a little bit farther beyond the edge of the cul-de-sac for the disturbance. This is the common septic area. This is actually a diversion swale for capturing the water that will be running off of here. It captures the water and brings it around to some bioretention areas.
That's also, that area is also included in with your disturbance?
Yes, because to divert the clean water around any disturbed areas is the best practice.
Okay, again, from this distance here, looking at that, I'm trying to
Right.
identify it. So,
This is probably about 25 to 30 feet wide at the most.
and this all just becomes mulch on the ground, left on the ground?
Yes.
Ron, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, I was just going to suggest that it might be helpful to the board if you could identify the acreage or the physical disturbance. It's not disturbance, I understand, but the physical area where trees will be removed, since they seem to be having a problem visualizing just how much area that is.
So the total area expected in the disturbance is a little over 37 acres, I believe, and this is about 22 acres will be disturbed in this. It's about a little more than half of the trees that need to be taken down for the whole project. We anticipate about 550 trees to be taken down, and this is 345 trees that will be taken down in this phase in order to do the to build the infrastructure. Now that, you know, the total amount of trees that are going to be taken down roughly are about 18% of what's on the property, and this phase will take down about 11%. And that's based on calculations. We did a tree survey of most of, well, not all of the property, but within the spine of where we thought the disturbance would be, and that averages out to be about 15 trees per acre. So we're estimating there's over 3,000 trees on the site, and we're looking to take down about 11% at this point.
Does that pathway cross any type of stream or?
No. There's wetlands back here. We are not disturbing or going near them. There's designated, there's the creek is here. So when we do the cut in for here, there will be probably a permit needed for that front area. And there are two existing buildings back here that need to be removed at sometime in the future, that if that is done, would need a wetlands permit, but that is not part of this construction.
All intents and purposes, you're just getting prepared to do the other work, obviously, and you're gonna use this as a temporary roadway for the future construction?
Yep, so they can come in and, they're not gonna build the roadway because we're not gonna disturb anything.
In the area that you just pointed to, though, there's quite a bit of regrading that has to take place there, correct?
Yes, but there's an existing haul road that they can travel in order to get up to the top, so disturbance doesn't need to take place to get up there and do the clearing. There aren't that many trees here that need to be taken down, but it has to be included in the area, because if there's one tree, we need to get in there and take it down.
Okay. Hey, Ron, a question for you, or both of you actually, on monitoring how, if we give them the approval, how is that typically handled? Would that go through Greg's office? Would that go through Conservation? Would that go through who?
I honestly can't be sure. Typically, my office would only get involved to monitor the physical construction after approval. So likely, I think on occasions in the past, it's been referred to the building department for inspection, but the Conservation Board clearly would have an interest.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Providing that the escrow monies are in place, that they are permitted to access for any inspections they perform, they'd probably be able to accomplish that.
And DEC has weighed in on this in general, that taking down trees is not just considered disturbance. It's considered disturbance when you actually pull the stumps, because then you're disturbing the earth.
Right.
So we're taking down the trees, but we're not creating disturbance of the site.
And when would you plan on taking stumps out, or grinding, or?
That would be when we completed all of the permitting and we've gotten our stormwater permit in place, and then we would put up all the erosion control measures that are necessary, have a pre-construction meeting with the town engineer and the building inspector, and then when we actually, quote, started construction, then we would start disturbing the earth.
Okay, because with these stumps, I'm visualizing this, trying to visualize this. With the stumps being in place, I could see that as being somewhat an obstacle.
Right, but we're not doing any work.
Right.
Okay.
We're not working, we need to take the trees down because we cannot take them down between April 1st and November
That we
1st.
understand.
I mean, that's what's driving the whole thing, is the narrow window that we have for really taking the trees at least down to stump level. What'll be left with the stumps and the results of that mulching process at this stage? Nothing else.
So can I just ask, where are you in your permitting process? I know you mentioned it, but where are we in all of that?
Yeah,
Here's where I'm going with
Yeah.
this. So we approved a project last year where we agreed to cut down trees on a project, and in advance of the project being approved, with all the permitting, they cut the trees down, and then they decided to not do the project, and they sold the property. So I'm just saying, from a precedent standpoint, I feel slightly uncomfortable right now with you asking for us to do the same thing, with us not knowing where the timeline is with regard to all of your permitting and having that in place.
Okay, so I can speak to that. We submitted to the health department, I believe it was in November. We had pre-meetings with the health department, so they knew the approach we were taking for the common septic area. It is being reviewed by the person who does all the commercial review, because even though this is a residential project, the size of the system is more in line with a commercial size septic system, so that's being reviewed. We've spoken with him several times. They are going to have a meeting within the health department so that everyone who has to sign off on it can be up to speed at the same time. We are not in control of when they will have that meeting, but we are in contact with them on a weekly basis, so we know that that is moving forward. Once they are comfortable with the permit, it has to go to the DEC for review. That can be quick or could take a little bit of time. You know, it's the DEC, you never know. As far as the DOT, we've worked on the plans, and they have been digitally submitted. We're waiting for comment, and then after we get initial comments, then we usually send in paper. They don't like a lot of paper at the DOT. What other, and everything else is, which one?
No.
Everything else is
really-
attorney.
Yeah, all the other, it's really the outside agencies that are gonna kind of dictate the pace, because we can't control DOT, we can't control DOH. Other conditions are really within our control, and we understand that concern completely. You know, from a practical standpoint, this has been a very, very long process, a significant amount of investment made to this point. It has every intention of following through.
We had conversations with him today.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate or clarify, the area included is the area for the common septic system field itself.
Yes, yes.
Have those drawings been any development in those drawings to verify or that that's the area you need and that's the area that's
Yep.
going to be
So
approved?
we did additional testing. The design that we came up with actually eliminates the need for if you'll remember, we had a common septic area here, and we had a lot of disturbance down here for a reserve area. And we've eliminated the disturbance needed for the reserve area, because the design that we're doing here is we're installing 150% of the required, and it actually uses 50% every year for 3 years, so it rotates through, and so we have enough here forever, and we've eliminated the need for having a secondary area of disturbance.
Ron, any comments on your end regarding this
You know,
approach?
we've been working with the design engineer for an extended period. This project has been around a long time. So most of the technical details have been resolved, subject to receipt of outside agency approvals.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the next step would be to go ahead and make a motion or ask for a motion.
Before you go there, you mind, Ron?
Yeah, that's why
Now,
I use Steve.
the thing is that if you want to allow them to take down the trees, which there's precedent for, the town's certainly done it in the past, you need to know where the trees are being taken down and what steps are being taken to make sure that trees outside the trees you approve being taken down aren't taken down. And right now, as far as I can tell, all we have is a letter from Beatty and Watson saying, please approve taking down the trees.
Well, so these are the limits, and we can survey, locate, and flag the limits.
I want to see that. I want that submitted.
Which we would do before we cut down any trees, and that can be verified by Ron or the building inspector. I mean, we're not gonna go in and cut trees beyond the limits of the disturbance.
Yeah, the assumption was that
You're asking
if,
for us to approve
if,
something you're telling us, and your letter is just saying tree removal. So
I
there's
would
a
like to
little
see
bit
it
of a
before
gap.
the board voted on it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's the board's decision, not mine, but I mean, next month you could have it submitted by, you could have some sort of a plan as to what trees are not gonna be cut down, some sort of statement as to why this is the minimum amount that you need to do before, you know, in order to get the project started. But to have the board vote on as little as they have before them, it's concerning.
but if the board were to vote and to delegate, you know, in terms of monitoring and in terms of overall supervision to the building department, or to,
Well, they certainly have the power to do that, but.
I would prefer to have clarity on that area, because we're looking at that, and just tonight, we had enough questions to raise a concern.
April 1 through November. They'd have to start in November, of whatever they don't get down now. April 1st, yeah.
March 31, they're in.
So this is the same
Prohibition
plan?
starts April 1.
Right, it's a matter of timing, you know, because even though it doesn't seem like it takes a long time to cut down a tree, there are a lot of trees to be cut down. So this is the area of disturbance. We can go out and have it survey located and staked. And the trees are what are earmarked from when we did the tree survey.
I have a question.
Sure.
You keep referring to the area of disturbance, but with the DEC regulations and anything over an acre for a stormwater pollution prevention plan, do you have any intent to put any devices in place for stormwater runoff? Or-
Yes, yeah, there is we did a preliminary stormwater, we did a preliminary SWIP,
Yeah.
which we did during the seeker process. We're refining that now to make sure that that everything is sized correctly, that all the pipes are sized correctly, that the water quality volume is being captured, that there's no increase in runoff off of the site. So that is being detailed.
Yeah, I'm just thinking runoff, you know, you're taking away vegetation and trees, you're gonna increase the likelihood of
Yeah.
surface flow, sheet flow. So is there gonna be any devices in place, silt fence, et cetera, that's gonna prevent any runoff down onto 9 or onto the neighboring properties during
Okay.
after the trees have been felled? Or-
So we would put silt fence in. Typically, you don't put silt fence in until you're disturbing soil. Even though we're taking down the tree canopy, we're not disturbing soil. So,
Because stumps are remaining in place,
right,
that's the
stumps are
argument?
remaining in place. There probably won't be additional runoff. There's mulch going to be created.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
guess I'm getting confused with the term disturbance, because I know over an acre of disturbance, you'd require a SWIP, right? So,
Correct, but this is residential, so it's over 5 acres of disturbance, which we still have. So residential threshold is 5 acres of disturbance for a SWIP.
So that drawing that you're showing us right now is indicating the area the trees are gonna be removed, correct? Okay, that is quite a bit different than the drawing you were pointing to.
No,
but-
it's just that it was duller before.
Okay.
So it's the same area. I just whited
Well,
it out.
let's put it this way, that's a little bit more dramatic than the
Yes.
prior drawing.
Yes, it is. Yes, but it's,
I think Ron's point has to be really taken into consideration on the areas that they're well identified. So we feel comfortable with it because of some past projects.
do you want me to survey locate it so you can walk through the woods, or do you, I mean?
I don't think we need to have it surveyed so we can walk through the woods, but we want it identified, so if we go out there in the field as the work's being done, we could say, you're going too far, just so we know what we're dealing with. There's a
Absolutely.
big difference here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree that we
I mean,
would,
I felt just now that we were showing two different things.
it's the same plan.
Well, flip that drawing over again.
Yeah.
According to my eye, I'm looking at, and
It's-
again, I'm, you know,
You think I'm looking at
20
just
feet
the
away.
gray, right? There's the
that's
area
that's the way,
beyond the gray.
but that's the way it was described.
No, this is the road and this is the right of way.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But when you flip the other one over, if you started with that one, I think the clarity would have been there.
So can I just add, so to just go back, right? My concern that I have is, we're talking about over 300 trees. We're talking about an unknown timeline for permits and approvals of permits. And if we go ahead and we agree to cut down the trees, once we cut down the trees, we have no idea after we cut down the trees to what point those approvals happen to then the point of when the work is going to get done. So, and what if the DOH actually does come back with make this revision or make this change, of which the DEC then says, okay, well, contingent on DOH, make this change, right? And yet we've gone ahead and we've already cut them down. So my concern is I don't feel comfortable with, one, such a large area of disturbance, and for us to go ahead not knowing the kind of the trajectory of how all of this is going to happen after the trees are cut. And then adding on to that the comments that Dennis, you're making, as well as Joe, which is we don't even know what's being taken down and how that's being mapped out. Because we're ultimately responsible.
Yes.
I'm in complete agreement. I don't think we should allow the tree cutting until all the permits are in place. And I also think 345 trees, it's certainly going to affect how the water is absorbed in that area. I mean, that's, trees drink water. So you take down 345 trees, it doesn't seem to make sense to me that if you leave the stumps, you're not affecting, you know, the absorption of water in the area and what's going to happen with stormwater going down into 9 or being all over the place. I mean, we have huge storm problems right now in this area, really, really bad. 345 trees must drink a lot of water. And so if you kill them, you know, without even having all the permitting done, I don't see how that could not affect the, you know, the water runoff from the area.
We can install silt fence on lower ends, but remember this land is not, there's crevices and where water runoff goes and still, you know, there's so much soil here underneath. This was going to be a soil mine. There's 80 feet of runobank. So when water runs across here, it goes down into the soil. It's not, we're not running off rock.
I just think you should have the permits before you cut the 345 trees. I don't believe we've ever given anybody authority to cut that many trees in any event, not to mention Laura's comment about the experience we've had with that.
Any other comments from the board?
The client can bond the trees so that in the event of catastrophe, that they could be replanted. That, I mean, that is, you know, could be a stipulation of allowing the cutting of the trees. There could be a bond,
Like a restoration bond.
a restoration bond.
Takes a long time to grow a tree. So,
It does,
okay. I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe the town has ever had a project of this magnitude, so we're being very cautious on this approval process. Obviously, this has been in front of the board before I've been with the board. So I could feel that for the owner, the concern with it, that really just disturbed me the way it was presented, though. It truly did. I've gone through professionally my own presentations, and that just...
Well, I wanted to make one that was like a little gray in between, but I actually had to go to another planning board meeting, so I had the Stark one and I had the other
Yeah,
one.
if you
and-
sorted out with that one, to be honest with you, I would have had a better feeling for it. And Laura's concern and Heidi's concerns, or comments, I should say, really have to be weighed in. So,
Okay.
We can, if you don't want to vote now,
Well, I guess my question is there any additional information that we could provide at the February meeting that would influence or provide better guidance to the members?
clarity is important, as far as I'm concerned. Ron, do you have any comments or what you would like to see or we should be looking for as a board?
Obviously, a board decision. Most typically, disturbance of sites doesn't occur until after the approvals are in hand. On some occasions, you've permitted tree clearing in advance with the expectation that the project, would move forward. This is entirely a matter for you to try to understand and make your decision based on that.
Yeah, I personally, my comment is, I don't feel comfortable the way it was presented. I feel something, so.
We have the tree survey, which lists the trees. I can provide you with a list of the trees that we are showing that are listed within that area. We can flag the area. We either can do it before.
I'd like to see, at least see that prior to any vote or motion made for a vote, so that's my opinion. I don't know if the board, any of the board members have any other items they would like to discuss regarding that, so.
All right, look, I appreciate the board's consideration. We are likely to be back in February because we will be submitting an application to extend the preliminary approval. It's pretty pro forma for an additional 180 days. We'll take the board's comments tonight, and if there is something we can provide that's a little more detailed,
Clarity.
yeah, we'll do so, but thank you for your consideration, and we'll be back in February.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
yeah,
And honestly, I understand and can appreciate what you're going through to try to expedite the project. I understand exactly. I've gone through that myself. So it's a hard decision, but again, we're representing the town, so.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is KPB Properties in Garrison, when you read. Okay. We just have to do, first, yeah. Okay, Margaret. You're on.
Hi,
Hi. You look familiar.
Margaret McManus with Beatty and Watson. This is a very preliminary plan for the site, which is at 201 Old West Point Road and Route 9. There's There's an existing single-family home here, and there's a cleared area that the present applicant has equipment stored, and I don't think any materials. But as Ron indicated in his memo, Mr. Barton has had some issues with the building department. He had some stop work orders that have all been cleared up, but one of the conditions of clearing up the violations on the site was coming before this board and getting site plan approval for what he wants for his business, which is a landscaping company. It's allowed by special use permit in this district. Before I became on board with this project, the owner and his architect had meetings with the DOT, who indicated they would allow a new entrance here, because the town does not want him to have commercial trucks coming out on Old West Point Road because there's limited sight distance. Out here, there's plenty of sight distance in both directions. We did preliminary grading plan, and we are gonna provide you with much more detailed plans probably in March.
Okay, I mean, this is really just an introduction to the
It's
to the
just an
project.
introduction. He needed to have his application in, so we provided him with an application.
Ron, basically our position here, or our task here, is to declare it as a major project.
Yeah, if you choose to take any action at all. As has been indicated, the applicant, Mr. Barton, has owned the property for some years, and he's allowed businesses to operate from that property without benefit of any review or approval from this board. That's resulted in the building department, the town CEO, issuing numerous violations over time to the applicant to get him to resolve the violations that were identified. Through that process, it ultimately culminated in some court activity, and the court has directed him to appear at tonight's meeting to get the process started of site plan approval. The violations that had been open have now since been cleared to allow him to get to the point where he could even submit, because you have to have a no violations letter from the building department. That's in hand now. But as the applicant's consultant indicates, they've only recently been brought on board by the applicant, so the plans are very preliminary. I think it warrants a submittal of much more detailed plans that you would typically see in a typical site plan initial appearance. So as I indicated in my memorandum that you all have, if you wish to take any action, you could clearly classify the project. That would be a first step that you always do. But then withhold any other action, which might include scheduling site visits, initiating seeker. Actually, an environmental assessment form has been filed, but again, in the interest of time, so the applicant could make the submittal, only a short form was filed. And given the activities that are proposed and the new site access now onto Route 9, it warrants a full EAF to be filed. As has been indicated, the property currently obtains access only from Old West Point West. The intersection, however, of that and Route 9 is so poor, the geometry is so poor, that can't be used for commercial traffic. You can't be making turns from the Route 9 corridor into that site heading south. So they've had preliminary meetings with DOT, as I understand it. DOT will permit them to access this very narrow access point to Route 9. That warrants significant engineering to understand how that will result. So the various details should be fleshed out on plan before you consider taking too much action or processing the application to any serious degree.
So even classifying it this time might be,
Well, that's not going to change, and that's why I suggested you could get that resolved at least tonight.
okay, but that doesn't affect any other decision making.
Right, doesn't impact any other decision. It's one of your first actions to take for any application.
All right, thank you, Ron.
Can I ask you a question about that, though? Do we even sort of know what I feel like I don't even know exactly what's even proposed. Like, so, like voting on the project as something, it's unclear to me what the project is. Like, and I know, we've encountered this before during the time I've been on the board. Maybe it was like 18 months ago, where someone had been using a property, was on 9, in violation of just violating all the building codes. And I know we were told that that doesn't, strictly speaking, involve us necessarily, but it would be great to get some information about what this person has been doing. Just a little bit of more background. I mean, I really appreciate everything you included in the memo, Ron, but if we could get like a little bit more information about what they're planning to do and what they did before, so that if we consider it as a project, we could know if are they gonna operate at hiding things that they're doing, like, or, I mean, kind of off the reservation a little? I mean, I'm just trying to make out how we view this even as a project at this point.
Sure. I understand the issue you raise. Recognize your initial step is to classify a project. and you have two choices. It's either minor or major. By classifying as major, it mandates a more detailed procedural and technical review that's accomplished. Doesn't tie your hands in any way. It only assures the board that you're going to get as thorough a review and processing of the application as is possible. So, as I said, you're going to require far greater details to advance this project in any other way. And certainly statements of use and more detailed plans are necessary and have to be provided for you to take the next step. So classification doesn't impact that process.
So, Ron, if we classify tonight as a major project, they could go ahead, prepare the information that they need. It gives us more information on what we're going to want in the future. I mean, it seems as it's a positive thing to go that route.
Right. It doesn't tie the hands in any way. It's the first obligated step you have to take. If you choose not to take it tonight, it's not an impact. It's just something you could at least put behind you. Doesn't allow the applicant to get any further ahead in the process. They still have to file the same documentation. And I've been through this in depth with the applicant. They understood how incomplete the initial submission was. And they understand the variety of details that are necessary to even allow you to move forward with any other step.
Yeah, well, I recall the pre-app meeting too on that. Would anybody like to make a motion to basically
Classify the project.
classify it as a major project at this time, or?
I can make that motion.
Any, second? I guess, second, okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And we got everybody? Oh, okay. You got a major project on your hand,
Thank you.
and probably,
Cleared the board's going to require a full secret EAF, so make sure that's submitted.
We were halfway through with it, and I knew I couldn't finish by the time this middle day came, so I did it short.
thank you, everybody. I think that's it. Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, second? Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year, buddy.
I think